This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Eben Janssen. We're streaming live on YouTube as we speak right now, and we'll do so for the next hour. The entire show can also be watched on demand on our YouTube channel all of the time. Today, we look at the ongoing negotiations in the platinum sector and the effect it had on the economy and then workers' lives. 130 train drivers in South Africa were fired for an illegal strike, and we look back at the life and times of South African icon Bram Fischer. But first, let's take a look at the news headlines. Parliament's ad hoc committee considering the Nkandla saga will begin its first session this morning. The committee has 4 working days in which to consider the President's response to the Public Protector's report on security upgrades to his private residence in Nkandla. Its first task will be to elect a chairperson, then discussions over its mandate and lifespan will ensue. Some observers say that even if the DA has its way and the lifespan of the committee is extended to the eve of the elections, that won't be adequate time to consider the matter. That committee is expected to report back to Parliament by the end of this month. There's no end in sight yet for the strike by members of Mine Workers Union AMCU. Talks to end the protracted wage strike in the platinum sector have been taking place at an undisclosed location here in Johannesburg. The union is meeting platinum mining companies in a bid to resolve the wage dispute, which is now 3 months old. The employer's latest offer would see the minimum total cash remuneration for entry-level underground workers rise to 12,500 Rand by July 2017. Workers are demanding a basic salary of 12,500 Rand. And there has been a decline in road fatalities on the country's national roads over the recent Easter holidays. 193 people died in 148 accidents compared to last year's 201 crashes, which claimed the lives of 241 people. The Transport Minister attributed this to the increased number of law enforcement officers and improved visibility on the roads. Road fatalities were blamed on alcohol abuse, reckless and negligent driving, as well as unroadworthy vehicles. 40% of those killed were pedestrians, which is a major concern. Road conditions also played a role in some of the accidents. Now, talks between the 3 largest platinum producers and the South African Union leading a strike are set to enter the 3rd day today. No update has been received on the status of negotiations held at an undisclosed venue here in Johannesburg. The cost of the strike is estimated to exceed 20 billion South African Rand, which is 6.3 billion Rand in lost wages for employees and a further 14.2 billion Rand in revenue for miners responsible for 40% of global platinum production. Now, Witwatersrand University senior researcher Dr. Gavin Capps joins us to talk about the effect of the strike. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Evan. Thanks for having me.
It's now 3rd day that negotiations are ongoing. Just tell us about the importance of this negotiation in the context of the South African economy.
Well, it's good to see, first of all, that the employers have come back with a revised offer. The positions looked very intransigent about a month ago. But I would say I wouldn't hold out too much optimism for the offer which is on the table at the moment. It falls a long way short of what the workers have been asking and instructing AMCU to ask for. If we break it down, the current offer on the table from the employers, or the reported one at least, is between 7.5 to a 10% pay rise. That would happen over a 5-year period. And the key thing is that this is cash remuneration. In other words, it would not just be basic pay, but it would include all other allowances, including things like the living out allowance. AMCU is starting from a very, very different position. It's starting for a basic pay of 12,500 Rand. And indeed, I think the feeling of the AMCU leadership and a lot of its membership will be that it's already moved considerably with its last office, where it said it would be prepared to allow that to be phased in over 4 years whilst freezing all other allowances. So there's actually quite a long way between the 2 parties at the moment.
You don't sense a softening of the stance on both sides, and that the sort of thawing of the sort of icy relationship?
Well, I think softening may be one way to put it. Desperation may be a better way to put it, and I would include the employers in that as well. I mean, I think, a couple of key things really have happened to bring the employers back to the table. One is actually the setting up of the strike fund by AMCU. That's a signal that they're serious and they're in this for a long term. And even if the numbers aren't particularly high at the moment, it's been a huge morale boost to the workers. Actually, the notion now that they're not going to fight this alone, but there may be wider solidarity. So that's the one thing which has shifted. The second thing which has shifted is that the employers were gambling on a fairly short, sharp strike, and the strike hasn't crumbled. Yeah. As we know, they stockpiled before the strike started. They stockpiled platinum, and a lot of the people they're supplying to built up their inventories as well. Although we don't have the figures, you know, the occasional bit of information which has leaked out look as if those inventories have really, really run down. And as you know, they had to issue force majeure notices to their suppliers recently. So their situation on the employer side is actually looking a lot worse than it was maybe 2 months ago. They have to come back to the table.
Now, sustainability has been the sort of key argument put forward by the mining companies. It seems, though, that they are going to revise an offer, and some talk 2017, 2018 as a time when this demand will be met. You say it's out of desperation.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, on the employer's side, there are powerful forces pushing them back to the table. This just can't continue for them. In terms of the sustainability of the workers, how long can they hold out, of course, is the other side of the question. And, I mean, obviously the workers are not a homogenous mass, so, you know, there are over 80,000 people out on strike at the moment, and there will be unevenness amongst those. There will definitely be workers who want to return to work who are really feeling the pinch. We can't deny that. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, from recent conversations I've been having with striking mine workers in Rustenburg, what has struck me is the absolute resolve of the workers to see this through. So, sorry, if I could just on that point, is the resolve to see this through, and actually that they are digging in for a much longer strike still.
The reality on the ground is a little bit different, though. They've been real suffering on the platinum belt amongst the workers. There've been no income for almost, more than 3 months now. It's had a real impact on the lives of workers and their families.
It has indeed. I mean, this has been a hard and bitter strike. There's no question about it. And the workers have suffered as a result of taking this action, and so have the many different people who depend on their wages, you know, whether it's small businesses or whatever. But in terms of the workers' capacity to keep on going longer, I think there's a couple of things we should keep in mind. One is that some of those workers have been able to move out of Rustenburg back to a rural base. Those are migrants have chosen to do so. I think the bulk have stayed within Rustenburg, but of the ones who have stayed within Rustenburg, they do have options to raise money. So what we're hearing a lot of now, for example, is the selling of livestock. And essentially what's happening is an order goes back to the rural area where they come from, a cow is sold, that money is then divided amongst a larger number of strikers. So in other words, cattle and livestock are a form of savings which are being cashed in. And that actually is keeping them going and could keep them going for quite a while yet.
You're not very optimistic that we'll resolve this impasse this week, it seems. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't happen long term? Well, I mean, first of all, just in terms of will it or won't it be resolved this week, I mean, the first point is really that AMCU needs a negotiating mandate. And my understanding is that this issue is not going to be discussed in a mass meeting amongst the workers until Friday. So only then will they receive their clear instruction about the way forward. I think then we can make firmer decisions about what's going to happen. But my sense is that it's going to be rejected. The offer which is on the table is going to be rejected by the workers, and that'll be the instruction. The country sits on tenterhooks. It feels like we've been held ransom for a little bit. But thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Gavin Capps, Senior Researcher at the University of Witwatersrand. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thanks for having me. Just to recap, that story talks to end the protracted wage strike in the platinum sector will continue behind closed doors at an undisclosed location in Johannesburg. The announcement was made by the Chamber of Mines. Employers from Anglo Platinum, Impala Platinum and Lonmin have been locked in a make-or-break meeting with AMCU. The union says there is no final offer yet and talks are continuing.
Labour Minister Mildred Oliphant, who's attending these talks, may call for a further round which will bring the parties back to the table. AMCU leaders have kept mum about the latest developments. On the ground, striking workers have been following events with keen interest.
Workers have not received any offer. We are waiting for Matunja to give us a report.
We are not going to listen to offers over radio or television. We are waiting for President Matunja to discuss the offer with us.
But they remain resolute.
We've been on strike for 3 months. We want 12,500 rand and nothing else. We will end the strike when Matunja says so.
Shares of the three platinum producers ended lower as hopes of a breakthrough faded. The three companies are expected to make a joint statement about their next course of action regarding the strike. Mbongini Mutwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, we change our focus now to another strike in KwaZulu-Natal, where more than 130 Metro Rail train drivers were fired at the beginning of the week for embarking on an illegal strike. The strike began at the start of the Easter weekend when the drivers said they feared for their lives after some of their colleagues were assaulted by angry commuters. In studio today, we have Nana Zanani from Prasa Rail to give us a little bit of insight. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Evan. Good morning.
Not bucking it, not trying to shy away from it. Just tell us the latest from your investigations about the alleged assault by commuters.
Perhaps to just clarify on the record, we did engage the drivers prior to the strike taking place. We did implement the necessary security measures to protect our drivers. Unfortunately, the wildcat strike happened after the fact, and it was in fact an abandonment of a service in between or during 2 o'clock peak, which is when we have obviously the most need. Now, we have a very solid relationship between ourselves and our unions, Utatu and Satao. The most important thing about this is that the number of people that we have working for us who are unionized, we have to respect that. The right to strike is fundamental. However, it's got to be done in a correct manner that doesn't necessarily put the business in jeopardy and further exacerbate the situation.
Especially at the peak times of the year, one would think. But these are genuine concerns for your safety at work. Tell us about lawlessness. Do we have a sense that there's lawlessness on the trains in South Africa?
We have pockets and we have particular individuals that perpetuate that. But a large majority of people that use our trains are honest citizens who are actually using it for the correct purposes of going to work, etc. However, what we've been saying throughout our interviews with you is that there's a certain amount of seriousness and responsibility that we are calling for. And we need our commuters as well as ourselves as management and our drivers to work together to make sure that we are not tolerating things like, as I've mentioned earlier, unsafe behavior, which is hanging outside the trains, but also the new trends that is being brought in by criminals, which is actually what we've seen in the unfortunate attack of some of our drivers.
Now, the drivers are fired, lost their jobs, families are without work. What's the message that you are trying to send to the public?
I think let me correct the notion that they are fired and their families are, which of course is true. But in context, when you embark on a wildcat strike, it is unprotected, it is not a legal strike, and it does not necessarily, you have not engaged in a proper manner, which is why, again, I reiterate that our relationship with our unions is actually based on the fact that we understand and we engage. But you cannot abandon a service, especially after you have been engaged by management on some of the issues that obviously our drivers were unhappy about.
Is there a legitimate fear that this kind of behavior and action could spread to other parts of the country?
I would venture to say that it is actually isolated, that it is an issue that is happening in that particular area. All of our drivers, they engage us. They know that if there are issues, they are represented by their union members who are very robust, who actually will take us to task if there are things that they feel their drivers and the rest of the employees actually need to be protected around.
The way forward from here in this process that you've embarked with these people?
We obviously are now running a reduced service in KZN. We've been upfront with our customers to tell them that we are running a reduced service, that the service will only focus on what we call our A corridors, which is corridors where we are running the most or highest number of people. We have reimbursed our weekly and monthly ticket holders, because the situation as it happens now is that we cannot be held at ransom, we cannot endorse illegal strikes.
Yeah.
But most importantly, we are also looking into upping our security, because we're not going to tolerate criminals coming onto our trains and rendering our service as lawless and unmanageable.
Well, Nana, thank you for coming in and clearing it up for us. It sounds or looked like a very worrying scenario, but it looks like you've got it well in hand. Thank you for joining us this morning. That is Nana Zanani from Prasa Rail. Well, after 130, it is Metro Rail train drivers were fired at the beginning of the week for an illegal strike. Still, in transport, Minister Dipuo Peters has conceded that the poor state of roads in some parts of the country has contributed to the Easter long weekend death toll. She presented her preliminary figures at a media briefing in Pretoria yesterday. Those killed on the country's road over the weekend dropped from 241 last year to just 193 this year.
Alcohol abuse and reckless and negligent driving, just some of the causes of road fatalities. Unroadworthy vehicles are also a major factor. 49 people died in 39 accidents in KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Limpopo with 30 deaths arising from 23 car crashes. In Gauteng, 22 accidents killed 23 people. Northern Cape had the lowest number of accidents, with 6 people dying in 5 accidents.
The figures for this past Easter long weekend indicate that our efforts in law enforcement are yielding some positive outcomes. They also show that our messages are reaching the target audience and that road users too are heeding our call to make road safety their personal responsibility.
But there is a concern. 40% of those killed on the roads are pedestrians. Road conditions have also played a role in accidents. There's a 150 billion rand road maintenance backlog. Mulimo Onemoto, SABC News, Pretoria.
Well, let's take a quick look at what's on social media. The strike has been very much at the top of people's minds. I think a lot of people are worried about the effects on the economy and so forth. And Paul Nkadimeng says, this AMCU strike is silly. 3 months of half a salary is far better than no salary. But they feel they have a real purpose, my friend. Andre says, AMCU striking miners will not accept anything less than 12,500 rand. They believe nationalisation of mines will save them, so I think no deal. Yes, that's just what the good doctor said. Jose Harvey says, President Mugabe earns $4,000 per month. President Zuma earns $21,000 per month. President Mugabe is going to be calling AMCU any day now. Well, there's a little bit of humour from Jose today. I suppose everyone has a right to try and be funny in the political space. Let's have a look at what's on our Facebook page. The story dominating UK headlines this morning. A mother has been arrested on suspicion of murdering her 3 young children at a house in southwest London. Tonya Clarence, who according to earlier reports is South African, cared full-time for the 3 children who are understood to have suffered from a life-limiting genetic condition. Then elections are around the corner, and the Independent Electoral Commission says it's confident that it has put in place strong security measures to prevent fraud in next month's general elections. We'll have more on that story on our page if you want to go and have a look at it. Then, 20 years ago, 9 people were killed and 92 injured in central Johannesburg in a bomb blast. Police said the 90-kilogram car bomb, almost twice the size of that used in the 1983 Pretoria bombing, went off on Bree Street just before 10 a.m., instantly killing a pavement fruit seller and causing extensive damage to the ANC's regional and national headquarters at the time. We take a look at how the world reported on this significant development at the time.
In South Africa, campaigning has ended for the country's first non-racial elections. Voting begins tomorrow and ends on Thursday. 9 people were killed yesterday when a large car bomb exploded in the centre of Johannesburg.
As the hunt begins for clues to the identity of the bombers, police have placed a massive security cordon around the area of the explosion. No one claimed responsibility, but the ANC national chairman, Thabo Mbeki, said it was the work of extreme right-wingers. The ANC quoted witnesses who said they had seen a white man get out of the car and run away before it exploded. With tension mounting in the last few hours before the elections, 4 members of the ANC were shot dead on their way to a rally in Durban, while 3 Inkatha supporters were killed after another rally in Soweto.
What a different country we live in today here in South Africa. 20 years after democracy this week, key focus on all our broadcast platforms, but also on online and elsewhere in South Africa. You're watching Newsroom. We'll be back after a short commercial break.
Mercedes-Benz is all what you can expect from a lifestyle brand itself. We are about premium and luxury, we're about fascination, perfection, at the same time responsibility to our communities.
You know, my father was a musician and he loved music, he loved especially choral music.
Now as a person of color, you can't hit on her like, hello nice.
Man, they were a great audience. No, I had so much fun performing for them.
Baby, I love.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
This is the program in which we showcase different aspects of government.
The Northern Cape is a land of many diverse cultures, of frontier history and brave missionaries. It also has countless challenges.
The Northern Cape has been plagued by especially alcohol abuse, rape and common assault and things like that.
More opportunities are being created each year to benefit all in the region.
This is a nation at work.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Calls for South Africans not to vote in the upcoming elections negate what revolutionaries like former SACP leader Bram Fischer as well as former President Nelson Mandela fought for. That's according to Mangaung Metro Mayor Thabo Manyoni. He delivered a memorial lecture on Bram Fischer at the Central University of Technology in Bloemfontein last night.
Bram Fischer represented Nelson Mandela and others in the Rivonia trial. In 1966, he was convicted of sabotage and communist activities and sentenced to life in prison.
His life is one of the most painful lives that one could experience. For instance, the day after he had saved Mandela from the Rivonia trial, 2 weeks later after that, whilst he was still struggling with the shock of Molly having passed away, he got arrested.
Manyoni says it is because of such sacrifices that calls to discourage people to vote are a slap in the face of a hard-earned democracy, a sentiment shared by others.
As we exercise our right to vote, let us honor all those men and women who struggled so that we could be in that queue freely.
While jailed, Fischer was diagnosed with cancer. He died in 1975 after he was released into his brother's care in Bloemfontein. Prison authorities took away his ashes after the funeral. Palesama Tani, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
Abraham Louis Fischer, commonly known as Bram Fischer, was a South African lawyer of Afrikaner descent, notable for anti-apartheid activism and for the legal defense of anti-apartheid figures, including Nelson Mandela at the Rivonia trial. Following the trial, he was himself put on trial, accused of furthering communism. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. He served 11 years and was released in 1975, crippled by the disease from which he died 2 weeks later. To tell us more about the events of last night, we are joined by the Executive Mayor of the Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality, Mr. Thabo Manyoni. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sir. Thanks very much.
You delivered a very impassioned lecture last night. Can you just give us the thrust of what you put forward about the life of Bram Fischer last night, sir?
Oh, last night I basically was stressing the point that Bram Fischer was really a remarkable Afrikaner from the Afrikaner aristocracy. He gave everything to make sure that he really liberates us, particularly joining with those who were less fortunate than him as one of the elites during that time. And I also stressed the point that it is now our duty, taking from the inheritance that they've given us, the Bram Fischers, the Mandelas, and others, to make sure that we enhance this democracy that we are having. And I then stressed the point of going to vote for whichever party, doesn't matter. But here I was stressing the point that all these people and these remarkable leaders, they fought for us to all have the franchise and the right to vote. Now that this right is enshrined in our constitution, it is then proper for all of us to exercise that right and make sure that we enhance our democracy. And actually, a call for no vote is basically taking the country backward. We basically are telling the majority of people who never had a chance to vote before to say they must then again go back and remain as they are. Yeah. I indicated that resistance, it has to have a moral obligation, and you resist not for the sake of resisting. You resist mainly when the country laws are unjust. And we can't say in South Africa that our laws presently are unjust, and therefore we would not support this democracy. But mostly so, yeah. I stressed also the point of selfless sacrifice, selfless service that Bram came up with as an African.
Well, I wanted to ask you about, you know, the role he played in the Free State, what he done for the province, and then also the sort of lessons that young South Africans should learn from this great man.
First, let me say there has been, and it is always there, the perception that the Free State has been a conservative area, an Afrikanerdom, the heart of Afrikanerdom place. And here we find this man, who could have been a judge president, as they say, who could have been a president, deciding that he will become one also of those who will liberate the country. So in that regard, it demystifies the issue that all Afrikaners basically were racist. And two, it then says to young people, particularly here in the Free State, we having experienced lots of problems when it comes to matters of racism, as we have seen at the university before, and so forth, that we can basically overcome and transcend the racial barriers that we are faced with. And particularly we who are inheriting from the Bram Fischers, we can then be able to take that legacy and make it work for those who are less fortunate than us in our lifetime.
Mr. Mayor, finally, what do you think Bram Fischer would say ahead of the election this year after 20 years of democracy? How would he view the country today?
You know, yesterday I also quoted the part where he was saying he will be happy that one day black leaders and white leaders could be able to sit and negotiate a future South Africa. How remarkable that statement was during that time, because we never thought that it will happen, and it really happened. I think Bram Fischer, if he was still alive, seeing what this country is at least now, and the manner in which it has transformed from being a racist, prejudiced country to being a democracy, he would really say whatever that he gave his privileges, his life for, was worth it. As he said, I think what I'm doing is right. And I think what he did was really not only right, but it was really great indeed.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for joining us today. That is the Executive Mayor of the Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality, Mr. Thabo Manyoni, talking about the life of Bram Fischer. Let's take a look at what you are talking about on social media. Doreen Lopes says the following: I'm no Sherlock Holmes, but my gut says this was just a mom overwhelmed with her reality. She's talking, of course, about the woman arrested in the UK. They claim that she's a South African. It's unconfirmed yet, but she killed her 3 disabled children. Psychiatry and the law says, why would a mother kill her babies? That is the question asked by Psychiatry and Law. Shure Kamunga says, South African woman arrested on suspicion of murder of 3 kids. Sad story. Sad story indeed, but it is still to be confirmed whether she is a South African lady or not. Just to go back to the Bram Fischer topic. Bloemfontein International Airport was officially named Bram Fischer International Airport by President Jacob Zuma at an historic event held at the airport on the 13th of December in 2012. Let's just take a look at the launch. Bram Fischer International Airport, well, a great man and a great leader and a great role model for South Africa. We're going to take a short commercial break. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News.
That's Sports Live, daily at 8:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Zoom into Africa. This is Seychelles. The president is Mr. James Michel James. Seychelles got independent from United Kingdom on 29 June in 1976. The population is over 80,000 people. One of the major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit is the Seychelles rupee.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Let's just take a quick look at the top stories. Parliament's ad hoc committee considering the Nkandla saga will begin its first session this morning. The committee has 4 working days in which to consider the President's response to the Public Protector's report on security upgrades to his private residence in Nkandla. Its first task will be to elect a chairperson, then discussions over its mandate and lifespan will ensue. Some observers say that even if the DA has its way and the lifespan of the committee is extended to the eve of the elections, that won't be adequate time to consider the matter. The committee is expected to report back to Parliament by the end of this month. There's no end in sight yet to the strike by members of Mine Workers Union. AMCU talks to end the protracted wage strike in the platinum sector have been taking place at an undisclosed location in Johannesburg. The union is meeting platinum mining companies in a bid to resolve the wage dispute, which is now 3 months old. The employer's latest offer would see the minimum total cash remuneration for entry-level underground workers rise to 12,500 Rand a month by July 17. Workers are demanding a basic salary of 12,500 Rand. And there has been a decline in road fatalities on the country's national roads over the recent Easter holidays. 193 people died in 148 accidents compared to last year's 201 crashes that claimed the lives of 241 people. The Transport Minister attributed this to the increased number of law enforcement officers and improved visibility on the roads. Road fatalities were blamed on alcohol abuse, reckless and negligent driving, as well as unroadworthy vehicles. 40% of those killed were pedestrians, which is a major concern. Road conditions also played a role in some of the accidents. Well, time now for us to take a look at what's happening in the online space, as it were, and on the social media front. And joining me in studio is Stephen Lang, who's the SABC Digital News Elections Executive Producer, and then, well, we have Matiba Mutewana, who is the SABC Digital News Senior Multimedia Producer. Good morning. It's a mouthful.
Good morning. Good morning. You got over it. It's okay now.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to talk first about the things that South Africans are very passionate about, which is the weather, really. And it's suddenly become very cold. We've had snow all over. Stephen, what's going on?
Well, it's quite cold, and it's time to break out the onesies. Are you breaking out your onesies already?
I've got a twosie.
A twosie?
It's two pieces, makes a onesie.
Okay, I think you need a onesie now. It's getting really cold, and we've already seen pictures coming up from the Eastern Cape and Lesotho area, where it is being
there we've got some
cold.
of the pictures on our,
Yes.
on our these are on the sites.
They're on SABC News website, and you can see them. They're quite spectacular pictures of snow falling. It's near the border with Lesotho.
Yes.
And we'd like to invite viewers to also send in their own pictures if they have of snowfalls. And I believe in the Eastern Cape there's been some quite hectic storms, rain, floods, and all kinds of things from the Dutwa area, which we'd like to receive that from our viewers.
That would be fantastic. And where can they send it to? To at SABC Digital News?
That would be perfect.
At SABC Digital News. That's where you can send your wintry pictures, snowy pictures, snowmen and all sorts that you'll be putting together in that side of the world where suddenly it's very cold, and it's going to be cold over the weekend up here in the northern parts of the country. But Matiba, elections. You're here to talk about the elections. Tell us what the plan is and how things are sort of panning out over the next couple of weeks.
In the digital space, we've been tracking elections and on social media platforms, and how political parties and political party leaders are performing online. And after viewing all that and speaking to analysts, it turns out South African politicians aren't doing so well, or as well as we think they are, compared to other politicians in other countries.
They don't understand the technology? Is that the thing?
It's not that they don't understand the technology. It seems they don't have real strategies or know how to engage. The one thing that came up was that they weren't engaging enough with their members. And you find a lot of political parties throwing out messages saying this is what we have done, this is what, announcements mostly, as opposed to probing, asking questions or engaging with whoever it is that they're hoping would vote for them. The one thing that was also big was the fight between smaller political parties and how they've gained momentum over the last couple of weeks as we get closer to the elections.
Is this the popularity of those leaders that we've got on?
Yes, we did. We kind of compared Facebook and Twitter and to see how different political parties and political party leaders fare. And if you look at that, those are political party leaders, and it turns out Twitter is more favorable to leaders than actual political parties. And that is one thing that I think most political party leaders haven't gotten to embrace. You find that...
what about political leaders that get involved in arguments on Twitter like Helen Zille has in the past? And they slag each other off. Can you lose face? Do you lose popularity?
You kind of do, but most fights tend to attract a lot of retweets and a lot of people listening to what you're saying or just watching to see how it will turn out. But the thing is, one thing we've noticed is that opposition parties, like party leaders, are very famous on Twitter. For example, EFF leader, it's a new party, but it's come and kind of Malema has kind of overtaken Helen Zille over the last couple of weeks. I mean,
as the biggest tweeter?
Well, most followers. He's got more followers when you look at political party leaders. And something that we noticed as well was that Jacob Zuma's profile himself hasn't been that active. He's got a lot of followers, but he isn't saying much. And it's this loud silence that everyone's waiting to hear what he'll say. You get a lot of things from government institutions as well as my ANC profile, but not a lot from him specifically.
Stu, I don't want to miss out on this one because I know that you guys are also looking at the plight of homeless people during the upcoming election. What did you find with the stuff that you looked at?
It was interesting because we recognize that there are specific markets or niches that campaigners go for. Yeah. But how many of them actually go for the homeless, the unwanted people? So we sent out one of our reporters and just down the road, and we found that there are homeless people here who help with the taxis that beg on the corners. And we did a very interesting video of this young man. You can see it there in the background. They live in this very impoverished area, and they also want to vote. But believe it or not, they didn't know about it. They didn't know about the registration. So some of us might think that it's been overkill in the IEC,
mainstream.
Yes, IEC saying to you must go out and register, it's important, etc. But there's a lot of people there that don't know about it. And I advise our viewers to go out there and have a look and see this video. It's very interesting.
It's very, very interesting to look at the sort of differences and this really points out the differences in class in South Africa, doesn't it?
It's a completely different perspective. It's not what we're used to seeing.
Well, you guys are doing fantastic work, giving us all these fantastic, different perspectives on our digital platforms. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to all the election stuff that you guys are putting forward. Thank you for joining us. That's our SABC Digital News team giving us an update as to what you get on our digital platforms. Of course, it's very busy there. You can get all sorts. Now, Soweto Fashion Week is back next month. Our producer, Katrine Milan, is standing by with a little bit more on Soweto Fashion Week.
Well, thank you, Eben, and from my side, welcome to the show. Models from all over Africa will be taking the runways of Soweto at the end of May for the Soweto Fashion Week, which will be celebrating its third year in existence, season 5. The show will feature only 10 selected designers. The designers who are from across Africa will be unveiling their fabulous creations over the 4 nights. We are joined by Ngugi Velivere, the Fashion Week's creative director, and Debbie Alorto from Darling Hair Design. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ngugi, I want to start with you. Yes. Soweto Fashion Week. It's 3 years now. Take us back to where it all started and how it's grown.
Soweto Fashion Week started as a frustration first from local designers who couldn't get the platform on big fashion platforms, you know, like a Joburg and Cape Town Fashion Week. And it hit Stephen Manzini as a vision of, okay, it's a frustration. How can I help the youth? How can I help my fellow generation talented guys, you know what I mean? And then from there, that's when he decided to start Soweto Fashion Week, right? And we've seen it growing from year to year. And when we started first, it didn't have much sponsors, you know, but it was more of someone who believes in the dream. You know, it was more of getting people who also believe in this dream that Stephen Manzini had, and then people coming together. And within the 3 years, people have been pitching in with the government coming in. We're getting sponsors from international sponsors and stuff. And we got now this year, we got Darling, you know. So things are really growing up, and people are starting to understand where Soweto Fashion Week is coming from and it's going.
Yeah, Debbie, let's talk hair. Tell us about Darling Hair and your role in the Fashion Week.
So, Darling Hair, we are a local brand. We're actually a Pan-African brand. We've been in the country for over 18 years, and we really cater for local women, for African women, and their hair demands and their hair needs. And I think that the association with Soweto Fashion Week came really about, you know, we simply speak the same language. So it's about fashion, it's about trends, it's about style. And you know, the fact that it's the second year running that we're associated with the Soweto Fashion Week, and it was about forming a sustainable partnership between the two brands going forth. And another element which was quite important for the Darling brand is that Soweto Fashion Week sort of nurtures entrepreneurship. They develop talent in the community, and that's something else that the Darling brand resonated quite strongly with.
Can you tell me, I heard that you guys are also running a competition this year. Can you give us more details on that?
We are indeed. We're launching a competition on the 1st of May, and building on that development of entrepreneurship and talent in the community, in the Soweto community, we'll be launching a competition for stylists, hairstylists in the Soweto community, whereby they could stand a chance to form part of the Darling Style team for the actual events, the Soweto Fashion Week event at the end of May. So we'll be launching that on our Facebook page on the 1st of May for entries to join us in that competition.
Hair design in South Africa, how does it compare internationally? How big is hair design in South Africa?
So the market is substantial in terms of hair, and you know, the biggest hair market internationally is the United States, and naturally we have influences that come through from the United States into the local markets. And we also have some influences from East and West Africa. But in saying that, you know, the South African woman has such a strong sense of her own style and a clear understanding, and that's where we're able to come and step up as a local brand and innovate for a South African woman, you know, to understand her needs and what her choices are for her hair, which is an integral part of her style.
Nguya, I want to get back to you. Can you tell us about the ties with Nigeria and Botswana? I understand we're going to see a lot of their designers at this Fashion Week.
Oh, yes. So the Fashion Week is now, we actually working on partnering. We are, in fact, already partnering with embassies from different African nations, because, like you know, Soweto is the mother of South Africa and is the mother of Africa. That's where most Africans were liberated, you know, and the world was liberated by Nelson Mandela, you know. So we also trying to make Soweto Fashion Week be the platform that liberate African talent from all over Africa, you know. So we're working with embassies from different, like I said. So we've got Nigeria, we've got 3 designers coming from Nigeria, we've got 1 coming from Botswana, the ones coming from Nigeria are coming with Miss Tourism Nigeria, right? And then from Botswana is one that we just selected, you know, because she's been with us for some time now. So it's like we're growing this whole this tie thing, because we want to go out to Africa. We are all about empowering, commenting fashion in Africa to go global.
Just quickly, how is it different from Joburg and Cape Town Fashion Week?
We all about empowering. You know, we're not looking for someone who's established and give them and make them pay for something. No, we are looking for people who want to get a platform, because the Soweto Fashion is all about empowering. You know, if we miss that, then we're not going to develop talent. You know what I mean? So we all about empowering and commenting fashion to the world.
So the details, when, where, and how can people become involved?
Soweto Fashion Week is on at the Soweto Theatre this year. It's on in fact, it's starting on the 28th, because we're having a pre-launch party on the 28th at the same venue, and then the show starts from 29th. The actual show starts from the 29th to the 31st, every day at 6 o'clock. And people getting their tickets can pay from the door or get them from Compy Ticket, you know. And for more information, just visit our website, and then we can, you know, we can share more.
It sounds all very exciting, and we'll be sure to put the details on our Facebook page as well. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And then, Eben, back to you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Katrine. Almost time for us to wrap it, but let's take a final look at what's happening on social media. That's where the news breaks these days. Let's take a final look at what you are passionate about or talking about. I can tell you, actually, what's happening. Nairobi bomb attack. Oh, yes, that is very recent. That's almost breaking news a little bit. Gabriella talks about car explodes, killing 4 in Nairobi. Seems to me this is more backlash against Kasarani than terrorism. Myro Collins, Kenyatta says, how does this man sneaks into Kenya cell, and how does this terrorist come all the way to Nairobi? How, please? Of course, very disappointed. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse for Somalia, 2 police officers among 4 killed in an explosion near Nairobi police station. And we have a picture of the scene that's coming on our Twitter page. That one from Maurice, if I'm not... Scene of car explosion, Pangani police station. 2 police officers confirmed dead. There you have a picture of the scene, of course. You can watch this platform. We'll keep you updated. KBS have improved their services in leaps while Double M sinks to unreliable Nairobi, says Bill Ruthie. Keep it coming. We love your contributions. We love your pictures. We love those kind of pictures that really add to the Development News Day. This show was broadcast live from our studios here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, in South Africa. You can watch the entire show or highlights on our YouTube channel. Edited highlights on our Facebook and Twitter pages are available as well. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We simply love it in the morning.